The most important day, perhaps, of 2013 has arrived, ladies and gentlemen, Cover Killer Nation. It's time for us to examine what is meant to be not only a piece of music, but also a piece of history. So many dates and numbers that we could go through. However, one number is the one that really stands to be the most important of them all. That being the number 13. Black Sabbath, 13. Yeah, it's here. Finally. Let's go through a couple of numbers first, though, before we get to the actual album itself. 12. It's the number of years it actually took to make this album, considering they were originally starting to lay down some tracks with Rick Rubin back in 2001. Well, here's another number, 15. It's the last time we've ever heard Black Sabbath in this incantation, well, of course, also with Bill Ward, with new live recordings. Yeah, it was off of a live record that had 2 additional tracks with it. However, the most pressing number, the one that really tells the tale, 35. That's how many years that it has been ever since Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath have made music together. Now, of course, Bill Ward is not a part of this due to contractual issues. And that right away set off the warning flags for a lot of us. It made us think to ourselves, oh shit, because we immediately think of Sharon Osbourne. We think about what happened with Iron Maiden whenever they were on Ozfest over in Los Angeles. We think about the fact that she was a judge on a reality TV show that's kind of like American Idol. We think about the fact that, yeah, it's Sharon Osbourne. Immediately we think about a couple of different things. Is this truly going to be 100% Black Sabbath? Is it going to sound like the old material, or are they going to try to do something completely brand new? Is Tony Iommi still the god of the riff? Does Black Sabbath actually have relevance in music today? The genre that they themselves catapulted to eventual fame. Do they have relevance in it here in 2013? 45 years after they got started. It's ironic that I wear a Beatles shirt while doing this review, considering the Beatles were just near the end, the swan song of their career, whenever Black Sabbath seemed to get the flag that was passed and take it into the new decade and eventually the new millennium. 13, though. Here's another number for you, 53, and another, 8. Because there's 8 tracks and they're 53 minutes, and the entire album is 53 minutes in length. It's kind of an important thing to consider. Now, Black Sabbath with Ozzy have not always been known for extremely long songs. However, it has been something that they have done, and they've done very well. Consider some of the earliest tracks that ended up, becoming successful, not to mention the ones that you hear on the radio. Consider tracks such as War Pigs. But then also consider tracks such as Paranoid that are very short. So this is a band truly that has been able to do it all. Not to mention, let's also consider the fact that this was very, very blues-laden. However, it just had a very, very heavy, evil sound to it, which is one of the main reasons why it was really set apart from the crowd, and why, even though there were proto-metal proteges out there, Black Sabbath really seemed to have a grip on what was going on in the musical world of that time, where things were getting a lot more psychedelic, things were definitely evolving, and these guys, Black Sabbath, were able to take it with a very dark twist. So here we are, 2013, with the release of 13, and we wonder about relevance, we wonder about sound. I'm going to put all of your worries and your mind to ease. This is old Black Sabbath, ladies and gentlemen. All of you oldsters that are checking out this album, wondering if this is just some glorified commercial bullshit, it's not. All of you youngsters that are wondering what a true Black Sabbath release feels like, believe me, I'm with you there. I was born in 1984. Everything that had been released after that was okay. But yeah, this is what it's about. This is the hype that you should feel. And this is what a Black Sabbath record that you would expect in 2013, in hopes of it sounding like 1973, should sound like. These riffs are huge. Tony Iommi, of course, is the god of the metal riff. If you think anything aside from that, you're fooling yourself, because without Tony Iommi, there is no heavy metal riff. Now, of course, people may come along later and change that little history rewriting altogether. However, just think about it. If you keep everything else in place as it is, without Tony Iommi, there is no metal riff. And, well, let's face it, a lot of that stuff that you're keeping in place may not actually exist. And he shows it once again, here, all of these years later, some 45 years later. that they are still able to write riffs that, yeah, they might be borrowing some elements from previous tracks, and yeah, they might even be borrowing concepts from previous tracks, things that made them very famous, but they are all tracks that are being worked at, and they're all tracks that are being able to organically develop and just really expose some really minor forms of genius. You get a real nice history lesson in this album. You get to understand that one of the true foundations of what Black Sabbath and a lot of early metal had been able to accomplish was based solely around the blues. It was based solely around good old-fashioned hard rock riffing. And the reason why so many Black Sabbath fans also get bands such as Deep Purple is for the same reason. They have this strict and fantastic love of the guitar and the sounds that it's able to make, and the heavy sounds that were able to be created. This album really showcases itself as a true historic monument for Black Sabbath. Whenever you consider a track, for example, like Zeitgeist, the very first thing that you think about is Planet Caravan from all of those years ago. You get that in your head, you hear those faint little bongos, and you hear the very atmospheric, airy, psychedelic nature of this track. And immediately, if you're a Sabbath fan, or if you've heard a couple Sabbath songs and Planet Caravan happened to be one of them, you immediately think about it. It's the first thing that comes to mind, and if it's not, then you haven't listened to enough. It's definitely a track that bears so many memories of that track, and it's able to fulfill the exact same element of spacey, psychedelic impressiveness. It's very, very well done. It's something that, from womb to tomb, has a brilliant, brilliant piece of very emotional music set within it. Now, whenever I say emotional music, do not blend that word with emo and think that somehow Black Sabbath has turned into the next Black Veil Brides. If you're praising that, fuck yourself. Because it ain't happening, it will never happen. He might have a whiny style of voice that you don't like, but he ain't gonna be no Black Veil fucking Brides. No siree. Not Ozzy. No. Now, we all heard God is Dead. We all know that this is a track that really exposed the doomy element. End of Beginning, is another track that really showcases this. This actually slows it down even more. Now, this might actually be troublesome for some people as well, thinking that the whole entire album is just going to be a slow, churned ride that really doesn't pick up a lot of momentum. But right in the middle of End of Beginning, it does pick up, and you start to realize that this truly is a Sabbath record that is to be reckoned with. You consider tracks such as the title track Black Sabbath. You consider other tracks such as War Pigs, which do at some points just trot along a little bit and don't exactly have quicker elements until later on into the song. We see the same thing in God is Dead. Whenever we get to Age of Reason, Live Forever, Damaged Soul, and Dear Father, that's where you start to see the overall body, the overall expansion of the blues and metal universe, where you really start to see this band's songwriting take a dramatic turn to the upside. Because these tracks bear and demand multiple listens in order for you to fully understand and reckon them. These were very well crafted by Tony, by Geezer, by Ozzy, by their drummer. It is something that is just very remarkable to think that 45 years later, they're not going into a studio and basically just laying tracks that would bore, newer fans, younger fans, people that expect a little more from their metal, but would only please perhaps the old, balding, semi-hippie hard rockers that were doing this long before the younger kids, people younger than me, were even born. Yeah. We're talking stuff like that. We're talking just good old-fashioned Black Sabbath music. Loner is a curious track on here. It's track number 3. It is right between the epic God is Dead and the Planet Caravan-y like Zeitgeist. And Loner's kind of weird because it's telling a story of somebody who keeps to himself. It's very direct. I will be honest with you on that. It is extremely direct. Whereas most of this has a lot of philosophical bearing to it and some very, very impressive lyrics. Ozzy actually penned some damn good lyrics. I was a little concerned after hearing I'll take the wine, I don't eat bread in God is Dead. I was a little concerned about his lyrical ability, but damn, did he impress me with the rest of this album. But Loner is very direct, and it's kind of a curious element, the curious outlier on this album. It rocks more like a hard rock track than a metal track, but it's still good within its own right. It also bears as one of the shorter tracks on this album. In fact, it is the shortest track on the album at 4 minutes and I believe 59 seconds. Actually, I take that back. Live Forever is a little bit shorter by about 10 seconds, but it's one of the shorter tracks on the album, on the short end of the spectrum. This album is tightly bookended by massive riffs, thumping bass that does definitely have a bit of an upgrade with the modern sound technologies of 2013. And the one thing I have to say, the one thing that I will praise this album for is the choice of Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin as a producer is an expert at making sure that everything gets where it needs to be. He really walks through the process, and he is very, very attuned to how things need to also be kind of mixed. There was a mixer for this album. His name or her name, I'm not even going to get to. But Rick Rubin really helps his artist through the process. Take a look at what he did with Adele. He basically encouraged her just to let these songs grow organically, and then just made suggestions throughout the course of the recording in order to make it really the album that it became. The same thing happened here with Black Sabbath. After everything went to hell in 2001, whenever Black Sabbath, came back to Rubin and said, hey, we're going to give this another go, we're going to restart this project, he could have easily said, no, fuck you. The last time, this was just a pipe dream. Now you're actually going to do it? But no. Rick took on this project. Rick was patient with this band, and because of that, he has rewarded us, and this band has rewarded us, with quality material. In fact, it's more than quality material. He's rewarded us, they've rewarded us with damn good material. Impressive material. This is something that's going to satisfy the youth and the old alike. And that blend of fan is going to make next Tuesday, June the 11th, 2013, one of the more impressive and important dates in musical and metal history. Because whenever this album drops, there's going to be a magnitude that's going to be held and felt around the world. Black Sabbath's back. Yeah. Is this as classic as Paranoid? Is this as classic as their classic albums in their discography? I'm not going to go that far. I'm really not going to go anywhere close to that far, because those will stand the test of time even after every member of the band and I am dead and gone. Does this, however, showcase that 35 years ain't shit? They can just get back together and still write relevant music? Damn right it is. That's exactly what that shows. It shows that Black Sabbath was one of those bands, and still is one of those bands, that whenever they're together, kicking it at all cylinders, and on the same page, they're hell of musicians. They single-handedly shaped a genre, and now, more than 40 years, close to 45 years after they did that, it's almost like they are looking down. They're already on the thrones, kings of their own domain, gods of their own world. And they're showing everybody else how it's done. They're showing how it was done in the old days. And they're showing why that way is just as relevant as all the new stuff that's out there today. 9 out of 10. This is just an excellent album. It's to the point where now, as I continue this review, probably on upwards to 13 minutes, I'm starting to lose the words. And it's time for me to stop. It's time for me to take a step back. And it's time for me to see and hear what you think about the massive, the brilliant 13 below in the comments. Thank you very much, guys. And pick this one up. This isn't just a tome of history that you'll listen to once maybe and then throw back on the shelf. You're going to revisit this album. I guarantee it.